Look, I'm going to level with you right from the start. When the Galactic Council first encountered humanity, they did what any reasonable collection of spacefaring civilizations would do. They panicked. Not the screaming, running around with their appendages, flailing kind of panic, mind you. This was the bureaucratic kind. The kind that involves 14 subcommittees, 63 impact assessments, and approximately 9,000 pages of documentation, all asking the same basic question. What in the name of the celestial expanse are these Death Worlders doing still alive? Because here's the thing about humans that nobody in the galaxy was prepared for. They came from Earth. Earth, a Class 12 Death World. That's not hyperbole, that's the actual official designation. The Galactic Survey Corps has a whole classification system, and Earth scored a 12 out of 10. Yes, you read that correctly. They had to expand their scale, because Earth was so absurdly hostile to life that it broke their measurement system. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. The planet has weather that actively tries to kill you. Tornadoes, hurricanes, lightning storms that could power a small space station. The tectonic plates shift around like they're trying to rearrange the furniture. The local wildlife includes apex predators on literally every continent, some of which have been apex predators for so long they've evolved apex predatoring into an art form. And don't even get me started on the microscopic life. Half the bacteria on Earth could be weaponized with minimal effort. So when humanity built their first FTL ship and showed up at the galactic equivalent of the new neighbor's barbecue, every species collectively lost their minds. The Vrais, who are essentially space chickens with anxiety disorders, immediately filed for a restraining order. The Klepton hive mind started building panic bunkers. The Zephrani, who prided themselves on being the galaxy's warrior race, took one look at human muscle density and bone structure and quietly updated their entire military doctrine to include a new section titled, "If you encounter a human in combat, reconsider your life choices." But here's where it gets really funny. And by funny, I mean the kind of funny that makes you laugh and then immediately feel bad about laughing, and then laugh harder because you feel bad. The humans didn't show up as conquerors. They didn't arrive with world-ending weapons or demands for tribute. They showed up with survey teams, cultural exchange programs, and an absolutely baffling amount of enthusiasm about meeting alien life. Within 6 months of first contact, there were human scientists embedded in research stations across 12 systems, human engineers helping to solve problems that had stumped galactic civilization for centuries, and human doctors who kept accidentally revolutionizing medicine because apparently Death World biology gives you some unique perspectives on healing. And then there was Dr. Camilla Chen. Camilla was a xenobiologist, which on paper sounds very official and scientific. In practice, it meant she had dedicated her entire life to studying alien creatures, and she approached this task with the kind of fearless curiosity usually reserved for toddlers and people with significant head injuries. She had been stationed on the Vrais homeworld for 8 months, studying their ecosystem when the incident occurred. The Vrais, as previously mentioned, are basically space chickens. Imagine if a chicken and a gazelle had a baby, gave it feathers that shimmered like oil on water, and then cranked its anxiety up to 11. They're herbivores. Strict, dedicated, haven't eaten meat in 4 million years of evolution. Herbivores. Their entire civilization is built on the concept of avoiding predators because their homeworld, Vraxia Prime, has some of the galaxy's most efficient hunters. The apex predator of Vraxia Prime is called a creche. Picture a wolf, but bigger. Now make it faster. Give it 6 legs for maximum pouncing efficiency, retractable claws that can cut through starship hull plating, and a jaw that can exert enough pressure to crush starship hull plating that the claws couldn't cut. Make its fur adaptive camouflage that shifts with its environment. Give it pack-hunting intelligence that borders on tactical genius. The Vraxis are terrified of creche. Understandably so. For millions of years, the creche have been eating the Vraxis whenever they felt peckish. It shaped their entire psychology, their culture, their technology. They built cities in trees and underground specifically to avoid creche. They developed space travel partly as an escape mechanism. Maybe if we leave the planet, the murder wolves can't eat us, was apparently a significant motivating factor in Vrais' technological advancement. So when Camilla asked for permission to study a creche up close, the Vrais' response was immediate and unanimous. Absolutely not. Are you insane? Do you have a death wish? Please stop asking. We're getting stressed just thinking about it. Camilla, displaying the kind of boundary-respecting behavior humans are famous for, said, "I understand completely," and then immediately started filing paperwork to study creche from a safe distance. The Vrais, relieved that she had apparently listened to reason, approved this plan. Safe distance turned out to be a somewhat flexible concept. 3 weeks later, Camilla was in the Vraxian wilderness, sitting approximately 15 feet away from a creche den, using observation equipment to study a mother creche and her 3 cubs. Her Vrais liaison, a scientist named Trickle who had drawn the absolute shortest of straws when assignments were handed out, was having what could only be described as a continuous panic attack inside their observation vehicle approximately 200 yards away. "Dr. Chen," Trickle's voice crackled through the comm unit, shaking so badly the translator was struggling to keep up. "Please, I am begging you, using all 6 of my hearts, return to the vehicle. The mother creche is looking in your direction. She is looking in your direction." Camilla, who was wearing what she affectionately called her "maybe don't eat me" suit, a specialized set of armor designed for close wildlife observation, didn't even look up from her datapad. "She's been looking in my direction for 20 minutes, Trickle. She knows I'm here. She's just decided I'm not worth the effort of murdering today." That is not reassuring. That is the opposite of reassuring. You have achieved negative reassurance. I'm going to write that down. Negative reassurance. That's beautiful, Trickle. The creche cubs, meanwhile, were doing what cubs of any species tend to do. Playing, tumbling over each other, and generally being adorable in that way that baby predators manage right up until they're old enough to eat you. One of them, slightly smaller than its siblings with a coat that shimmered between silver and midnight blue, had been watching Camilla with intense interest for the past 10 minutes. "Dr. Chen, the small one is approaching you. The small one is approaching you." "I see it, Trickle. Why are you not running?" "Humans can run, yes? I have read that humans can run. This would be an excellent time to demonstrate that ability." The cub padded closer, each step careful and curious. Up close, even a baby creche was impressive. It was roughly the size of a large dog, with paws that seemed comically oversized, like a puppy that hadn't grown into its feet yet. Except these feet had retractable murder claws, and those adorable golden eyes had vertical pupils designed for tracking prey in low light. Camilla stayed perfectly still, keeping her breathing even, watching the cub approach from her peripheral vision. She'd studied enough Earth predators to know the rules. No sudden movements, no direct eye contact, no signs of prey behavior. Project Calm. Project Confidence. Project, I am also a predator, small one, and you are very cute, but I am not food. The cub got within 3 feet and stopped, tilting its head in a gesture so universally dog-like that Camilla had to suppress a smile. It opened its mouth slightly, scenting the air. Then, in a move that would be analyzed by xenobiologists for the next decade, it reached out one oversized paw and gently, curiously, patted Camilla's armored glove. Trickle made a sound like a tea kettle achieving consciousness and then dying. The cub, encouraged by the lack of response, patted the glove again. Then, exhibiting the kind of decision-making common to babies across the universe, it decided the glove looked interesting and bit down on it. Not aggressively. Not a predatory strike. Just the exploratory bite of a baby trying to figure out what this weird thing was. Its teeth, which would eventually grow into serrated nightmares capable of tearing through reinforced alloy, currently couldn't penetrate Camilla's glove at all. But the cub committed to the investigation, locking its jaw around her hand and starting to pull backward in a tiny, adorable display of tug-of-war instinct. "Dr. Chen, You are being attacked by a creche. You are being attacked by a creche. I'm being gummed by a baby, Trickle. There's a difference. There is no difference. All creche are dangerous, even the cubs, especially the cubs. The mother will defend her cubs. The mother creche had indeed lifted her head and was watching the interaction with the kind of intense focus that suggested she was about 3 seconds away from turning Camilla into a cautionary tale. 6 golden eyes locked onto the human, and a low rumble started in her chest that made Camilla's armor vibrate. This, objectively, was a bad situation. The cub, blissfully unaware of the mounting tension, continued to gnaw on Camilla's glove, making little growling sounds that were probably meant to be fierce but came out adorable. It braced its back legs and pulled harder, determined to win this battle against the strange not-food creature. Camilla, in what can only be described as a moment of either brilliant insight or catastrophic stupidity, the kind of moment that defines human behavior in crisis, started laughing. Not nervous laughter, not scared laughter. Full, genuine, delighted laughter at the absurdity of being play-attacked by a baby apex predator while its mother contemplated whether to add human to the creche dietary menu. The cub stopped pulling, tilted its head again, still holding the glove in its mouth. The growling in the mother's chest stopped. Camilla kept laughing, the sound carrying across the clearing, and she gently wiggled her glove-trapped hand, turning it into a game. The cub's eyes widened, and it released the glove only to pounce on it again, this time with what could only be described as playful enthusiasm. It made a chirping sound, a noise that Camilla would later learn was how creche cubs communicated play invitation to their siblings. And then something unprecedented happened. The mother creche, this apex predator that had Vrais' civilization cowering in bunkers for millennia, made a sound that the translator couldn't quite classify. It was somewhere between a chuff and a purr, a rumbling vocalization that research would later identify as the creche equivalent of amused tolerance. She laid her head back down. She was letting this happen. Trickle's voice came through the comm, barely above a whisper. What? What is occurring? My translator must be malfunctioning because it suggests the mother creche is purring. Creche do not purr. Creche do not purr at things they are about to eat. I don't think she's going to eat me, Trickle. That is what all eaten things think before being eaten. The cub, now fully committed to this new game, released the glove and pounced again, this time aiming for Camilla's boot. It batted at the armored toe with both front paws, claws retracted, in the universal language of, play with me, play with me, play with me. Camilla, throwing every piece of scientific caution directly into the sun, slowly reached out her other hand and gently, so gently, scratched behind the cub's ear. The cub froze. Its eyes went wide, and then it leaned into the touch, making a sound that was unmistakably a purr, a deep thrumming that Camilla could feel through her glove. I'm petting it, Camilla said, wonder in her voice. You are committing suicide with extra steps, Trickle responded. It's purring, Trickle. The murder cub is purring. That is its predatory contentment sound. It makes that sound before disemboweling prey. No, I'm pretty sure this is a happy sound. I've heard a lot of happy animal sounds. This is definitely happy. The cub's siblings, seeing their brother getting attention, abandoned their game and padded over to investigate. Within 30 seconds, Camilla was surrounded by 3 creche cubs, all vying for pets, all making those deep purring sounds, all occasionally gnawing on her armor with their baby teeth in what was clearly affectionate exploration rather than predation. The mother creche watched this with what Camilla swore was the interspecies equivalent of a tired parent watching their children play with the neighbor's kid. Dr. Chen, I need to report that I'm witnessing a human being voluntarily covered in creche cubs. Please confirm that you have not suffered a head injury. No head injury, Trickle. Just making scientific history. This is not science. This is madness. This is what madness looks like. The smallest cub, the one who had started this whole adventure, managed to squirm its way into Camilla's lap, curled up like it belonged there, and looked up at her with those enormous golden eyes. Then it yawned, showing off a mouthful of baby teeth that would make any dentist nervous, and closed its eyes. It fell asleep in her lap. This predator cub, this creature that should have seen her as either threat or food, fell asleep like a puppy. Camilla sat there in the Vraxian wilderness, covered in baby apex predators, and started laughing again. Not from fear, not from stress, but from the pure, absurd joy of the moment. Here she was, a human from Earth, a death worlder from a death world, making friends with the galaxy's most feared predators. The mother Kresh made that amused sound again. When Camilla finally returned to the observation vehicle 3 hours later, after carefully extracting herself from the pile of sleeping cubs and backing away, while the mother watched with what could only be described as bemused tolerance, Trickles stared at her through the vehicle's window with all 6 eyes. "You are alive," Trickles said flatly. "I am alive," Camilla confirmed. "You petted a Kresh cub." 3 Kresh cubs, actually. "You are going to give me a heart attack. All 6 of them, simultaneously. I got it on video." "Of course you did. Of course. Why would you not document your own death? That is extremely human of you." The video that Camilla uploaded to the Galactic Research Network that evening broke every viewing record in the database. Within 24 hours, it had been seen by approximately 40% of all spacefaring civilizations. The Vrais Planetary Council called an emergency session. The Zafrani warrior caste watched it 17 times and updated their human threat assessment to include a new category. Somehow makes apex predators like them, unclear how, possibly magic. The footage showed everything. The approach, the bite, the laughter, the petting, the pile of purring predator cubs using a human as a bed. But what really got everyone's attention was the mother Kresh's reaction, that amused tolerance, that decision to not only spare the human but to allow her cubs to interact with this strange creature. The xenopsychologists went absolutely insane trying to explain it. Papers were published. Theories were proposed. The leading hypothesis suggested that the mother Kresh had somehow recognized Camilla as another apex predator, a fellow hunter, and the laughter had been interpreted as a non-threatening social signal. Camilla had a different theory, which she shared in her official report. Maybe she just thought it was funny. Maybe watching her cub try to murder my glove and fail spectacularly was entertaining. Maybe Kresh have a sense of humor, and we never noticed because the Vraxis were too busy being terrified to look for it. This theory was considered controversial, radical, and possibly insane. It was also probably correct, because here's the thing about humans that the galaxy was slowly learning. They didn't survive Earth by being the strongest or the fastest or having the best natural weapons. They survived by being smart, adaptable, and absolutely committed to the bit. They survived by looking at a saber-toothed cat and thinking, I could probably make friends with that, and then doing it, and then inventing dogs. 3 months after the incident, the Vraxis Planetary Council reluctantly approved a joint research program between humans and Vraxis to study Kresh behavior and social structure. Camilla led the human team. The Vraxis scientists involved all requested hazard pay. Within a year, they had established that Kresh were not only intelligent, but had complex social structures, communication systems, and, yes, a sense of humor. They played. They formed bonds. They had personalities. The Vraxis had been so focused on them as predators that they'd never looked for the people behind the teeth. The small cub that had bitten Camilla's glove became something of a galactic celebrity. Camilla named him Chomper, because of course she did, and he grew into a magnificent specimen who had absolutely zero fear of humans and a concerning fondness for belly rubs. The Vraxis, slowly, carefully, began to reconsider their relationship with Kresh, not as monsters to hide from, but as neighbors sharing a planet. It was terrifying. It was revolutionary. It was the most human thing that had ever happened to their civilization, and they hadn't even done it themselves. Trickle, who had somehow become Camilla's permanent liaison despite vocally protesting this assignment at every opportunity, stood with her at a research station 6 months later, watching Chomper play with his siblings in a nearby clearing. "I still do not understand how you knew the mother would not eat you," Trickle said. Camilla shrugged. "I didn't know. Not really. But I figured if I was going to get eaten by an apex predator on an alien world, I might as well be laughing when it happened. Seemed like a very human way to go." "That is insane." "Probably. You laughed at a creature that could kill you in seconds." The cub was funny, Trickle. He was trying so hard to be fierce, and he just looked adorable. What was I supposed to do, not laugh? Yes, not laughing is the correct response when a predator attacks you. Where's the fun in that? Trickle made a sound like a sigh that had achieved sentience and given up on life. Humans are going to be the death of me. All 6 hearts. Simultaneously. But you'll die laughing, right? Despite themselves. Despite every instinct screaming at them. Trickle made a sound that the translator identified as laughter. Nervous laughter, yes, but laughter nonetheless. In the clearing, Chomper looked up, saw Camilla, and came bounding over with all the grace of a freight train made of enthusiasm and murder mittens. He skidded to a stop in front of her, chirped the play invitation sound, and gently, carefully, bit down on her glove. Camilla started laughing, and somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers, another species updated their assessment of humanity to include possibly insane, definitely dangerous, somehow makes it work, unclear how, possibly magic, definitely contagious. Because that's the thing about humans. They don't just survive impossible situations. They laugh at them, make friends with them, and somehow convince everyone else that this is a perfectly reasonable way to behave. They turn terror into joy, danger into opportunity, and apex predators into friends who just want belly rubs. And they do it all while laughing. Because at the end of the day, in the face of a universe that's vast and terrifying and full of things that want to eat you, sometimes the most human response isn't to run or fight. Sometimes it's to laugh and see who laughs with you, even if that who happens to have 6 legs, retractable claws, and a jaw that can crush starship plating. Especially then. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. Because humans being humans, one breakthrough in interspecies relations is never enough. They have to keep pushing, keep experimenting, keep doing things that make the rest of the galaxy question whether Deathworlders have a functioning survival instinct at all. 2 years after the Chomper incident, as it came to be known in academic circles, or the time that human made friends with murder, incarnate. In less formal settings, Camilla was presenting her findings at the Galactic Xenobiology Summit on the neutral station Kepler 442b. The auditorium was packed. Every major species had sent representatives. The Vrais had sent an entire delegation, mostly because they still couldn't quite believe any of this had actually happened and wanted to hear Camilla admit it was an elaborate prank. It wasn't. Camilla took the stage wearing what she called her formal armor, which was just her regular armor but polished, and addressed an audience of approximately 3,000 beings from 47 different species. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, I want to address the rumor that's been circulating. No, I did not bribe the creche with food. No, I did not use pheromone manipulation. And no, I am not part creche myself, though I appreciate the Zetharian delegate's creative hypothesis. There was a ripple of chittering, clicking, and various sounds that the universal translators interpreted as laughter. What I did was simple. I treated the creche as intelligent beings capable of choice, rather than as automatic murder machines. And you know what I discovered? They are intelligent beings capable of choice. Shocking, I know. A Vraxis delegate stood up, feathers ruffling in agitation. But Dr. Chen, the creche have been hunting my people for millions of years. How do you explain that? The same way I'd explain any predator-prey relationship. They're carnivores. You're herbivores. That's ecology, not malice. Human ancestors were hunted by big cats for millions of years. We didn't assume the cats were evil. We just understood they were cats, doing cat things. Eventually, we learned to coexist. Some of us even domesticated the smaller ones. You domesticated predators? This from a Klepton representative, their collective voice buzzing with confusion. We call them house cats. They're adorable. They also have a higher per capita kill count than any predator in Earth's history if you count small prey. We let them sleep in our beds. The auditorium erupted in chaos. Multiple species started shouting questions simultaneously. The translators gave up and just started outputting error messages. Camilla waited for the noise to die down, a slight smile on her face. Look, I'm not saying the Kresh are going to become vegetarian. I'm not saying the Vrais should stop being cautious. What I am saying is that intelligence creates options. The mother Kresh who let me pet her cubs. She made a choice. She assessed me, determined I wasn't a threat to her offspring, and allowed interaction. That's not instinct. That's decision-making. She pulled up a hologram, showing Chomper, now nearly full-grown, playing tug-of-war with a length of rope while Camilla laughed in the background. This is Chomper at 18 months. He weighs approximately 200 pounds. He can run at speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour. His bite force is measured in the thousands of psi, and his favorite game is fetch. He brings me sticks. Sticks, like a dog. That is not scientifically possible, declared a Zafrani military analyst. Our behavioral models indicate that apex predators do not engage in play behavior with other species outside of hunting practice. Your behavioral models didn't account for humans. Nothing accounts for humans, the Zafrani muttered, but loud enough for the microphones to catch it. Camilla continued her presentation, showing data, behavioral studies, communication patterns. She demonstrated how Kresh used different vocalizations for different contexts, how they had social hierarchies based not just on strength but on problem-solving ability, how they mourned their dead and celebrated births, and had what could only be described as cultural practices passed down through generations. And then she showed the footage that would change everything. It was recent, recorded just 3 weeks prior. Camilla stood in a clearing with a pack of 7 adult Kresh, including Chomper and his mother. Nearby, clearly visible in the frame, was a group of Vrais scientists in protective gear, watching from behind reinforced barriers. In the video, Camilla held up a holographic display showing a 3-dimensional maze. The Kresh gathered around, watching with clear interest. She tapped the display, and a virtual representation of prey appeared in the maze. Then she stepped back. The Kresh consulted with each other. Actual consultation, with vocalizations back and forth, gestures with their heads and tails. They were discussing strategy. And then, in perfect coordination, they moved to different positions around the holographic maze and, through a series of calls and responses, guided the virtual prey toward a coordinated ambush point. They had understood the abstract concept. They had strategized. They had communicated complex tactical information. They had solved a puzzle designed for sentient beings. The auditorium was completely silent. The Galactic Council defines sentience as the capacity for abstract thought, complex communication, and self-awareness, Camilla said quietly. The Kresh meet all 3 criteria. They're not just predators, they're people. The implications hit the audience like a freight train made of existential crisis. If the Kresh were sentient, then the Vrais hadn't been hiding from monsters for millions of years. They'd been sharing a planet with another intelligent species and never bothered to check. The hunting, the predation, all of it took on a different context. It wasn't good versus evil. It was 2 species trying to survive, neither understanding the other was capable of understanding. A Vrais elder, one of the oldest in the delegation, stood slowly. Their voice trembled. Are you saying we could have talked to them? This entire time, we could have talked to them. Camilla's expression softened. I'm saying it's not too late to start. What followed was 6 months of intense debate, ethical discussions, and more than a few existential crises. The Galactic Council formed a new committee specifically to address the Kresh situation. First contact protocols, originally designed for spacefaring species, had to be adapted for intelligent species that had never left their planet. Camila led the human delegation to the initial talks. The Vraxis sent their most decorated diplomats, all of whom were absolutely terrified but determined not to show it. And the Kresh, after weeks of careful communication through the research team, sent a representative of their own. Her name was roughly translatable as "she who hunts the dark places," but she told the humans they could call her Nara. She was a matriarch, leader of one of the largest Kresh packs on Vraxia Prime, and she was approximately 3 times larger than Chomper, with fur that shifted between deep purple and black. The first official meeting between Vraxis and Kresh representatives took place in a specially constructed neutral zone. The Vraxis delegates sat on one side of a large table. Nara sat on the other, her massive form somehow managing to look both regal and relaxed. Camila sat at the head of the table, equal distance from both parties, trying not to think about how completely insane this situation was. Trickle, who had been promoted to head Vraxis xenobiologist specifically because of their experience with humans and their unique ability to function while in a constant state of near panic, spoke first. "We, the Vraxis people, come to this meeting with, significant historical concerns about, well, the eating of us. By you, the eating. There has been a lot of it, historically." Camila closed her eyes. "Trickle, we practiced this. I forgot the practiced words because there is an apex predator 10 feet away from me and my brain is screaming." Nara made a sound that the translator couldn't quite process. She looked at Camila, and Camila, who had spent 2 years learning Kresh vocalizations, recognized it immediately. She was laughing. The Vraxis delegates all froze, feathers standing on end, interpreting the sound as a threat display. "She's laughing," Camila said quickly. "That's amusement, not aggression." Nara's translator, a small device that the human engineers had spent months developing specifically for Kresh vocal patterns, crackled to life. "Small prey birds are funny when scared, like pups who see their own shadow. See, this is exactly the kind of intercultural misunderstanding we're here to address," Camila said diplomatically, while internally screaming because, of course, the first official words from the Kresh to the Vraxis were essentially calling them cute scaredy cats. But something unexpected happened. One of the younger Vraxis delegates, a scientist named Prill, who had been part of Camila's research team, made a sound. A small sound, one that might have been, if you listened very carefully, a nervous laugh. "We are pretty funny when scared," Prill admitted. "We once evacuated an entire building because someone mistook a maintenance drone for a Kresh." Nara's ears perked up. "You ran from machine? Small cleaning machine. It had red eyes and made growling sounds. Was broken machine. It was working perfectly. It was just cleaning." Nara made the laughing sound again, deeper this time. "Prey birds run from clean machine. Kresh pups braver than adult prey birds. And Prill, despite every instinct, despite millions of years of evolution screaming at them to flee, laughed back. Your pups have never met our security drones. They have very aggressive cleaning protocols. The ice didn't just break. It shattered. Within an hour, both delegations were sharing stories. The Vraxis talked about their history of hiding, building, surviving. The Kresh talked about the challenge of hunting increasingly clever prey, the respect they developed for Vraxis ingenuity, the frustration when the Vraxis left the planet and there was nobody interesting to hunt anymore. "Wait," Trickle said. "You were frustrated when we achieved spaceflight?" "Prey birds were worthy challenge," Nara explained. "Clever, fast, always new tricks. When prey birds left, only dumb animals remained. Hunting became boring. You're saying you missed us? Missed the chase, the cleverness, the... Nara paused, searching for a word. "The game." "You thought being hunted was a game?" Trickle's voice hit a pitch that made the translator question its existence. "All hunting is game. Good prey makes good game. Prey birds were best game." Camila watched this exchange with fascination. "Nara, when you say game, do you mean it was fun? Yes, fun, challenging, made pack work together, made pack think. Without prey birds, Kresh became lazy, slow, stupid. One of the older Vraxis delegates leaned forward, their lifetime of fear warring with curiosity. Are you saying that hunting us made you smarter? Made us work together, made us plan, made us communicate better. Prey birds evolved to escape, Kresh evolved to catch. Both became clever. Nara tilted her head in a gesture that was pure curiosity. Why did prey birds never try to communicate before? The silence that followed was profound. We were terrified, Trickle finally admitted. We saw teeth and claws and speed and we ran. That's all we've ever done, run and hide and build walls. Walls were good challenge, Nara said approvingly. Tree City's very clever, had to learn to climb, climbing hard with 6 legs. You learned to climb to catch us? Of course. Cannot let prey birds think they are safe. Makes them lazy. And there it was. The fundamental misunderstanding that had defined 2 species for millions of years. The Vraxis thought the Kresh were malicious monsters. The Kresh thought the Vraxis were playing the galaxy's longest, most elaborate game of tag. Both had been wrong. Both had been right. Both had been 2 intelligent species failing to recognize intelligence in the other because they were too focused on the immediate relationship of predator and prey. The talks continued for 3 weeks. They established ground rules, boundaries, protected zones for Vraxis populations, designated hunting territories where Kresh could pursue non-sentient prey. They created communication protocols. They discussed reparations, though Nara seemed confused by the concept because from the Kresh perspective, they'd just been doing what Kresh do, and the Vraxis had been doing what prey birds do, and that was just nature. The Vraxis struggled with this. Millions of years of trauma couldn't be erased with 3 weeks of talks, but something had shifted. The nightmares were still monsters, but monsters with names now. Monsters who laughed, monsters who missed them when they were gone. Monsters who were, in their own predatory way, people. On the final day of the talks, Nara asked to speak with the Vraxis delegates privately. Camilla started to leave, but Nara stopped her. Human Camilla stays. Human Camilla understands both sides. Human Camilla is bridge. So Camilla stayed, sitting between 2 species that had been locked in evolutionary combat for longer than humanity had existed, wondering how her life had gotten this weird. Nara stood, her full height impressive and terrifying. The Vraxis delegates tensed, but Nara lowered her head, a gesture that research had shown was a sign of respect among Kresh packs. Kresh have taken many prey birds, she said slowly, fed many pups with prey bird meat. This is truth, cannot change truth, but now Kresh know prey birds are people, are clever talkers, are builders of clean machines. That laughing sound again. Now that Kresh know, Kresh will not hunt prey birds, will teach pups that prey birds are. She looked at Camilla for help. Off limits? Camilla suggested. Yes, off limits. Like pack members, you do not hunt pack. Trickle's voice shook. You're saying we're part of your pack now? Same planet, same sky, same home. If not enemies, then pack. This is Kresh way. One of the oldest Vraxis delegates, a historian who had spent her entire life studying records of Kresh attacks, of losses and fears and endless vigilance, spoke with a voice thick with emotion. Our children will not have to hide in the trees anymore. Kresh pups play in trees. Prey bird pups play in trees. Can play together maybe. Learn each other's language. Learn each other's games. You want our children to play with your children? The concept seemed to break something fundamental in the delegate's worldview. Human Camilla played with Kresh pup. Pup is happy. Human Camilla is happy. Why not prey bird pups and Kresh pups? And Camilla, sitting there between 2 species that should have been eternal enemies, realized she was watching something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just first contact, not just peace talks, but genuine, honest reconciliation between predator and prey. 2 species looking at each other, and seeing not just hunter and hunted, but neighbors, potential friends, pack. Of course, the galaxy lost its collective mind when the treaty was announced. The Zephrani warriors issued a statement that was basically, "We don't understand what's happening. Humans are involved somehow. We're updating our threat assessment again, possibly to just be a question mark." The Klepton hive mind calculated a 47% chance that this was all an elaborate human prank, and they were waiting for the punchline. The Galactic Council had to add a new category to their xenopolitical documentation: Predator-Prey Reconciliation Protocols. See also, what even is this? We don't have procedures for this. But on Vraxia Prime, in a clearing that had once been considered too dangerous for any Vraxis to enter, something remarkable happened. Camilla sat on a fallen log, watching as Chomper, now fully grown and absolutely massive, very gently let a group of young Vraxis ride on his back. Their parents watched from a safe distance, still nervous, still not quite believing this was real. But the children, born into a world where Kresh had names and spoke through translators and apparently gave rides like the universe's most terrifying pony, just laughed and squealed and held onto Chomper's fur while he walked in slow, careful circles. Nara sat next to Camilla, her massive form somehow managing to look almost relaxed. Human. Camilla laughed at Kresh Pup. Changed everything. I laughed because he was funny, Camilla said. He was trying so hard to be scary, and he just looked adorable. Fear makes walls, laughter breaks walls. Very human thing. We're good at finding the humor in terrifying situations. It's a survival trait. What is phrase? Laugh so not cry? Close enough. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play. Kresh cubs and Vraxis younglings, playing tag, playing hide-and-seek, playing all the games that children play regardless of whether they have feathers or fur, 2 legs or 6. Prill approached, walking with the kind of confidence that came from repeated exposure to things that should be terrifying but turned out to be relatively okay. They sat down next to Camilla without asking, which was itself a measure of how much had changed. "The council wants to know if you'll stay on as a permanent liaison," Prill said. "Between humans and Kresh, Vraxis and Kresh, everyone in Kresh, really. You seem to be the only one who speaks fluent Predator." "I speak fluent dog," Camilla corrected. "It turns out apex predators across the galaxy have some universal traits. They're smart, they're social, and they respond well to respect and belly rubs." "You give Nara belly rubs?" Prill's feathers ruffled in shock. Nara made the laughing sound. "Human Camilla gives very good belly rubs. Human fingers better than Kresh claws for scratching." "I'm going to need you to process that information in your own time, Prill," Camilla said. "But yes, I'll stay. Someone needs to document all this. Besides, I've got a whole new avenue of research opening up." "What's that?" "Comparative behavioral analysis between species raised in integrated versus segregated environments. I want to study the cubs growing up together. See how it affects their development, their social structures, their communication patterns." "You want to study interspecies friendship?" "I want to prove it exists. Not just between humans and everyone else, but between any species willing to try. The galaxy thinks predator-prey relationships are fixed. I think they're just poorly understood." Trickle joined them, moving with less fear now, but still maintaining a healthy respect for the massive predator lounging nearby. "The treaty is being ratified today. Official galactic recognition of Kresh sentience. They're offering them a council seat." "Will they take it?" Camilla asked. "Nara's pack is voting on it. Apparently Kresh have democratic processes. We didn't know because we never asked." "Seems to be a running theme," Camilla observed. Chomper finished his ride-giving duties and loped over, collapsing next to Camilla with all the grace of a landslide. He rolled over, exposing his belly, and looked at her with those enormous golden eyes. "Seriously?" Camilla said. Chomper made a plaintive whine that translated roughly to, "Belly rubs now please, thank you." Camilla sighed and obliged, scratching the belly of a creature that could tear her apart in seconds, but instead chose to be a giant, murderous teddy bear. "This is my life now," she said to nobody in particular. "Professional apex predator belly rubber." "Could be worse," Prill observed. "Could be better," Trickle countered. "Could be boring," Nara rumbled. "Is never boring with human Camilla." And that really was the essence of it. Humans had looked at the galaxy's most feared predators and said, "But what if we tried making friends?" And when everyone else pointed out all the very logical reasons why that was a terrible idea, humans had just laughed and done it anyway. Because that's what humans do. They find the impossible situation and make it work. They see walls and break them down. They hear, "That's just how things are," and respond with, "But what if they weren't?" They laugh in the face of terror, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, terror laughs back. And when an apex predator cub bites your glove and won't let go, you don't panic. You don't run. You laugh and you play, and you show them that maybe, just maybe, the universe has room for more than just hunter and hunted. Maybe it has room for friends. Even if those friends have 6 legs, retractable claws, and a concerning enthusiasm for belly rubs. Especially then.